most wonderful time of the year. And I'm not talking about Christmas, I'm talking about performance management. You know you love it. Not. Let me tell you why you hate the performance management process at your company. Let me just give you a couple of reasons, right? Even though 98% of organizations, according to one poll, says that 90% of corporations believe that performance management is important, most of your leaders haven't had good, really good, solid training, coaching, and preparation to have performance conversations with you. They are taught to manage tasks and assignments, but not to figure out how to coach you to be whatever you're supposed to be. Think about that. Like legit, most people hate their performance reviews. 80% of employees prefer immediate feedback. When's the last time you got immediate feedback, like immediate good feedback from your leader? 59% of workers, according to one poll, think that traditional performance reviews have no impact. And 32% of workers haven't had any performance feedback in 3 months. That's helpful. And then 64% of workers think that quality feedback, the quality of their feedback needs to be reviewed. At the end of the day, performance management for me is one of the things that actually moves the needle on how organizations do, right? Honestly, if you watch any sports, all the coaching is performance management. It's managing the performance of what's happening and who's doing what by when. It's just that simple. And unfortunately, companies haven't put nearly as much effort or emphasis on what it takes to manage the asset of its people. I was sitting in a conversation and I had a leader tell me like, hey, listen, this is important, but we just don't have time for it. And I thought like, what an oxymoron. Like, I used to work at a paper mill, right? And in this paper mill, they make both paper and tissue. And on the tissue side of the house, the tissue would come out on a little roll. It was the neatest thing to see, like paper towels and toilet paper being made. It's actually quite cathartic. And it would roll like 1,000 miles an hour and it would just roll. And you get it in this big, huge spool, right? And the forklift would come and they would pull it off the line and shove it into, either the trucks or wherever it needed to go, right? Well, sometimes when it would come off the line, either it would already be damaged or the forklift might drop it and damage it or what have you. But if it got too damaged, they couldn't use the asset. Now, if a crew and the supervisor made too many of those mistakes, someone was looking to say, hey, listen, you guys either have to be retrained or something else needs to happen, right? Well, the company's not going to let them damage too many of the physical assets. And if that's the case, why would a company be okay with managers damaging the people assets, giving bad, toxic, or passive-aggressive feedback, or not enough feedback, or, hey, you need to improve. Well, what do I need to improve? And how am I going to do that? And are you going to give me enough training and expertise? And are you going to coach me on the one thing that you need me to do better? It's just not helpful. So, knowing that your leaders are probably less than equipped to give great feedback, here's what I want you to do. Most systems have a part where you've got to fill in all the stuff that you've done for the year. I want you to do that well, like legit, like do it. Remember all of the things that you've done in the past year. Hopefully you're on a quarterly system because most people don't have an attention span for a year's worth of performance. But if you're not, check your emails, talk to your colleagues, talk to your allies and your network and your advocates to help you remember what you've done over the last 12 months. And I want you to document it. I want you to just take a minute and take all in the amount of time and energy that you spent working. Seriously, just take it in. Then I want you to think about what you want out of the conversation, right? Part of what makes these conversations just anxiety-inducing is that you don't know what they're going to say more often than not. And that's exhausting. So rather than giving into that feeling, figure out what do you want out of the conversation, right? What is it that you need from that leader? And are they capable of giving it? Because if they're not capable of giving it, that's another topic for another day. But let's just assume, for the sake of argument, they can. think you need to figure out what it is that you want. Is it more opportunity, more training, more access, more exposure? What's the thing that's going to help you with that goal that we talked about? Your ultimate goal for your next step. Have a strategy and a plan on what you want to get out of the conversation, but also be really sober about your opportunities. Having sat in the HR space, I've seen a lot of people like, oh my gosh, I cured cancer. Like, no, you didn't. You just gave somebody a Band-Aid. Don't hyperbolize your impact. Literally tell both the good and the bad and the ugly of what you've done. Don't be too hard on yourself, right? But be clear about like, here's where I can do better and here's where I acknowledge that. Most people are reasonable, right? If you don't have like a leader who's super toxic and has, some semblance of touch with reality, this shouldn't be a terrible conversation. Figure out what you want out of it and be clear about challenging them to be a good leader for you. Teach them how to treat you. And if they give you broad brush feedback like, oh, well, you could do a little bit better in your reports. How? What is not to standard? What is not to your expectation? When did I do it? Give me an example so that I can clearly understand what success looks like. And if they're still not clear, ask, in 6 months, what would success look like for me in this job? What are the 3 things, 3 or 5? If they give you more than 5, they don't know it best. They don't know it well. Einstein says, if you don't know it well enough, you can't understand it. Right? He said, what is it? If you can't explain it simply, then you don't understand it. So ask for 3 to 5 things that they want you to do differently. Document that. And then when the conversation is over, dear Barbara, thanks for the conversation. Here's what I heard. Why? Because we're documenting everything to make sure that you heard them correctly and that they heard you, and they know you're also going to hold them, what do we say? Mutually accountable, right? Because as an agent of the organization, they should be helping you grow just as much as they're also getting out of you. At least if you're working for an organization that believes that, right? I want you to take command of the performance management conversation. I want you to be very clear about what you want to get out of it, and don't be a victim of it. Ask, what can I do differently? What am I not doing well? Tell me what I'm doing well. Who else does this well that you like how they do it? If they can't explain it, tell them to give you a resource. But whatever you do, don't leave there not getting the direction that you need, right? This conversation isn't for the people who are stellar. God bless you. Merry Christmas. But for anybody else who needs help, who needs clarity, make sure you're clear with questions. Listen, send your performance review, your personal review, put it in ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to give you some probing questions. Ask ChatGPT to give you some questions on how to ask your manager for more specific feedback. Use your resources. Use your resources to advocate for yourself. Embrace the conflict and embrace the awkwardness of it. Even say out loud, hey, I'm a bit nervous about this conversation, but I'd like to make sure we can have an open dialogue, and that I also you get to hear from me about what I need from you. Listen, we spend too much time at work not to kind of get the kind of support we need from the people that are supposed to be helping you grow, develop, and move forward. So that's the tidbit. That's the extra episode for your performance, right? At the end of the day, give grace to these folks because many of them have never been trained to talk to you. Let's be clear. Many of them they've been trained to do financials. They've been trained to do technical stuff. They've been trained to do mechanical stuff. They've been trained to do a lot of stuff, but most of them have not been trained on how to talk to you. So give grace. Go in there with a plan on what you might need. Be clear about your deficiencies. Ask other people. Get your own 360 feedback so that you have a clear and realistic view. And then go in there and own the conversation because it's your performance conversation for your development and for your benefit. And decide whether or not you're going to heed the criticism, because criticism only matters if you respect the critic. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Join our Facebook community. We're growing and we're excited. We'd love to have you be a part of the folks who have endured and survived a toxic boss, a sucky boss. So come and join the Facebook community, like and subscribe to this channel, and also check out our website. While we're tapping the next set of episodes, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories because we're going to read them on site on our next podcast. We want to hear from you so we can help you grow. And remember, don't let your boss suck the life out of you. Take it easy.